Hey, hey.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good.
Wow. Well, let's see here. Hey, welcome to the Glenn and Randy TechKrunch this morning. Really looking forward to having today's topic presented and do some sharing with you folks. And I'm having a rough time with my words this morning. I need another cup of coffee. So let's start this all over again. Well, anyway, so today's nice coffee cup you got there, Glenn. So one of the questions people ask us all the time, and our customers and whatnot, they say, "Hey, you guys do a great job archiving that cold data to the cloud. Put it in the S3 bucket and Amazon and whatnot. What are the ways I can access that data in its native format? So is there anything I can do with it? How do I access it? How do I look at it? And things like that." So we wanted to show you a few ways today that you can access that data in the cloud. So
pretty cool thing too here is that, and we get asked all the time, what if I get rid of Komprise at some point? We don't want people to, but they can. So they use Komprise a while. What if we get rid of it? Can we still access the data? And we're going to show you today that yes, you can. There's ways to do it even outside of Komprise completely.
That's a good point. So yeah, maybe some administrator says, "Hey, my user's laptop is down, or the system's down. I want to go grab a file or two, or go do some data mining on the data that's been moved over there. Maybe we archived, 2 years of trace files or log files, and somebody wants to mount that or look at that data and do some data mining on it for a couple months. So that's some of the use cases that we have. So that's what we're going to show you today. So let's go ahead and get started on this thing then. Just go to the meat of the presentation and show you exactly how we do this. You ready for this, Glenn?
I'm ready.
All right. So this is a sample university here, Acme Medical University. They have a lot of home directories and things like that. Yeah. So this is a fictitious medical university, and we have a lot of universities using our product. And this medical university has 2.1 petabytes of unstructured data out there, various Unix and Windows data, which you can eyeball it and just say, hey, at least 50% of that data is ice cold. It hasn't been accessed in 3 years or 2 years or 1 year or greater. So let's show you how to archive data into the cloud and then accessing it. So the way you archive data into the cloud is you create a target, and we've got a number of targets set up here. We've got AWS3 cold home directories, for example, and there's a lot of them out here, but it's a pretty simple step to do that. You just add a new target to tier your cold data to. You insert the credentials here, and after you insert the credentials, you check this box here called native format. So make sure that the data's format is called native, so that therefore you can access the data when it's there with its native format.
And something to mention there is you'll see other solutions that archive data to cloud or send data to cloud, write it in a proprietary format, so it cannot be read outside of the solution itself. And that's pretty unique for Komprise, our capabilities.
Yeah, thanks, man. So the way you would get data, that cold data, to that S3 target, you simply go over to the plan section, because we did the analytics, and now let's do something with it. Let's build a cloud strategy and move and archive that data with symbolic links and leave those behind. So you just go over to the plan, you edit the plan, you select which type of data that you want to tier off, and you see we've got some home directories out there. And so let's say, for example, if those users out there haven't accessed their data in 2 years, how much data would that be? Well, we can quickly see that that's about 10% of the data. So we drop this down to about a year. We can see that about 13% of the data about 19% of the data has not been accessed in a year. And we can archive that over to AWS3 cold home directories, hit done editing, activate that plan. Once you activate it, or you can test it if you want to, once you activate that, what happens is that cold data gets moved over to Amazon S3 bucket, and the symbolic links get left behind. And what that looks like is when the links.
One more thing on that, Randy, before we move on. So you can also, in addition to archiving data in native format, we can also just make a replicated copy in native format, which just copies the data but doesn't do anything to the primary storage itself. primary data. So if you just need a second copy of something somewhere in the cloud that's readable, even outside of Komprise, you can do that via copy files.
Yeah, so let's do that. Let's take a copy of, so we're moving the cold, tiering some of the cold data to AWS S3. Let's take a full copy of that data and preserve it somewhere else for whatever reason. It might be data protection, it might be reporting, it might be ransomware protection. So let's put a second copy somewhere else. Let's put it in IBM Cloud Object Store here. So we'll put a second copy in the IBM Cause solution there. So that works too. So you hit done editing and activate. Now the cold data will go to AWS, and a copy of everything will go to IBM Cloud Object Store. Got it there, Dan?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So when that data gets moved over, what the user sees is a little, it looks like a shortcut, which we leverage what's called a symlink, which is a construct. There's no software on the client, no software on the servers, no software on the storage. We just leverage symbolic links with Windows and Unix. And what it looks like under the covers is it points to the Komprise access address. You can see what that looks like there.
And the access address itself actually points to one of our systems in our grid. So it actually points to a Komprise system, and then that Komprise system reaches out to the target wherever the data is and hands it back to the end user. Got it.
And this identifies the Komprise access address, and then the source and the target over to Komprise. And with Unix, a similar identifier there as well. And so what it looks like is one option you can do is you can mount that via what's called the Komprise access address, and mount that on your Windows system by leveraging pointing right to the Komprise access address and mounting that as a share. And so now I'll point over to Glenn, and Glenn's going to show us a couple other ways. There's a lot of different ways to access that data in the cloud in its native format. So Glenn,
absolutely. All right, hand it over, and I'll grab the screen here.
Let's do this.
Okay.
Now I can sit back and watch you while I have a cup of coffee.
I was enjoying my coffee. Okay, so the Komprise access address method is really useful. Any target data, any target behind it, it can point to. So if you, in that use case where we have some data in AWS and some in IBM Cloud, you can go to that Komprise access address and access both. But what if you want to access Komprise data outside of Komprise altogether? You can do that. So various methods for accessing data within S3 compatible object storage devices. What I'm using now is called S3 Browser. And I'm pointing to AWS lab that we have here at Komprise. So it's a lot of data that we have in AWS and different various types of data. Some of it's Komprise data, some of it's sharing data and things that we use internally. But I'm going to show here. So I've got a Komprise James folder or bucket. Within the Komprise James folder, I've got some sharing data. Here at the bottom, this is a lab environment. So this lab environment points to or holds some data from Komprise that we've archived and some that's been copied and things of that nature. So when I dig into this, I see a KC folder, and you'll see this whenever we write data. You'll see some numbers. So this might look a little cryptic when you're first digging into it, but really what we're showing here is each of these numbers corresponds to a file server, and it's easy to get that file server data. You just go into Komprise. This is that lab environment that Randy was showing, and I can type diag at the end of my directory URL, and this will give me several different diagnostics that I can use for troubleshooting and things of that nature. But when I look at what I'm looking for here is the ID map, and what this shows me is a list of IDs with what type of IDs they are. These are file servers, some correspond to shares, and I can see which file servers correspond with which IDs. So this is how I can tell where I'm actually pointing. Because if I want to go to data on the NetApp, I would go to data within 1210. So here I've got several. I'm going to 1036. I've got data here, metadata folder. So we strip out metadata and put it in a separate folder when we write out to S3, so we can put it back in whenever we do a read. But I go into the data folder and I see the actual data. I see this as native data. I can read this. Again, I'm not getting Komprise involved at all here. I can read the data directly. I can come in here. I can look at different properties of the file. So if I go to my Word document, I can see what permissions I have on it, what properties. I can even preview it and it doesn't do a great job of previewing Word documents. But if it's a text document or something, it'll show the text within the document and things of that nature. So I can easily, I can come in here and easily read data. I can, double click on a file, get some more information on it. But if I, want to, if let's say I want to do some additional editing or something, or I want to use this file for other purposes, I can actually download it to my system. I'll just download this to my desktop. And it'll download the file that I can then use and do whatever I want to with it. So again, the cool part about this is completely outside of Komprise. You can read the data with tools directly to your S3 buckets without getting Komprise involved at all. Even easier, I can use a tool that, I got TNT drive here as an example, but there's tools that will mount S3 buckets as drives on your system. So I can come in here, mount a drive, point to my S3 bucket that I want to mount to, and then I actually have a drive. So my J drive now on my local system is that bucket that we've been looking at.
So that means,
yeah.
Hey Glenn, that means you can mount that drive, have with all those trace files and log files from another server and do some data mining on it if you want to.
Absolutely. I could do really anything that you could do with a local drive, you can do with a map drive out to this S3 bucket. So I've got all my information here. I again can, read any of these documents, obviously, take a quick look at them. And then again, if I want to make some of this data local to do more editing and more work with, I can do that easily as well. And when it reads from S3, of course, it's dependent on your internet connection and things of that nature. So it takes a minute to pull up. But I can also come in here and grab, like if I want this whole zip file, I can just drag it right over to my desktop and have full access to it. Okay, so the gist of this is, again, this is even easier than using a browser. You can actually go into your Windows File Explorer and read the data that Komprise written out to an S3 object storage device, public cloud, private cloud, whatever you're writing out to.
Hey, there was a question, by the way.
What's the question?
Yeah, it says, we archived this data, we tiered it off to an S3 bucket. And I'm able to do that in archive to a NAS device.
Good question. Yeah, we've actually, on our call here today, we've been focusing on S3, but you can absolutely do the same thing for NAS devices as well.
And access that data in NAS as well.
Yeah. Same way as we were accessing there, you can map a drive out to it. You don't need the S3 browser, obviously, if you're writing data directly to NAS. But when I come in here and define a target share, and I just want to define a NAS device, I've got the same options. I can come in here and choose to write out. Actually, whenever we write to NAS, we always write in native format. You don't have to make any additional choices there.
So if we have that old NAS box sitting out there that we're not using anymore, we can use that as a target for cold data.
Yep, and the data that's written out to it is fully accessible even outside of Komprise. Very similar to what we do with the S3 stuff.
Yeah, so the other question was that how often are copies done, and how often do we refresh and look for cold data to be archived? The answer to that question is, by default, after a archive is finished, of moving the cold data somewhere else and leaving the symbolic links behind, and after that plan is finished, copying the data for that data protection to the cloud, we'll wait. There he is. There's Glenn. Welcome back, Glenn. And you went away. Now you're muted. But anyway, we wait for 7 days. Komprise will wait for 7 days and then go through the cycle again. But that 7 days can be configured down to 1 day or 1 hour. So that's the answer to that one. You can have it the plan finish and then a new plan start or refresh an hour later if you'd like to do it that way as well. We're about 1 minute past our drop dead time. We want to keep these down to 15 minutes. So we're going to wrap it up here. Glenn, you got anything else you want to add before?
Nothing else here.
Okay. Then why don't we wrap it up? I do want to let you guys know what is the next topic for next time. There's been a lot of questions about the confine functionality. So it's one of our favorite functions. Is how do you use confine? What's it all about? What are the use cases? And how are customers using the confine functionality use case? So that's it for the Glenn and Randy show and TechKrunch. And thank you everybody. Be wise and Komprise. And until then, we'll see you on December 9th to talk about the confine functionality. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.
Thanks, everybody.